My heart is racing. We're bad 2020. We're bad 2020. Thank you to everyone who's even clicked play on this video to see what I have to share. If you're a benzo injury, benzo illness survivor, my heart is with you on this day as we come together with a collective voice, a collective cry for people to hear our stories, to learn more about this disease state and its recovery, to bang our drum, right? To bang our drum. Please hear us. So I stand with you on this day. To anybody watching who knows nothing about the disease state caused by the benzodiazepine class of drugs, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for learning more. If you're learning on behalf of a loved one, if you're learning even for yourself, maybe just beginning the journey, if you're just researching preventatively, thank you for doing so. Thank you for digging deeper to learn more. I am not in the state that I wanted to be in to make this video. I'm going to be totally frank, because there's really no other way to play this level of disease but to be frank about it. I suffer intensely from my periods, like far beyond what is reasonable or normal or acceptable. And my period snuck up on me this month, and literally about an hour ago I got it. And I'm in a very high level of pain. It's very labor-like pain. I'm sitting out here with my pillows. My low back is really hurting, and I absolutely had to take cannabis, CBD, RSO to even be able to deal, and ibuprofen with sitting here. But if I don't get this video done now, what's going to happen over the next 5 to 7 days is I'm going to decline. It's what happens to me every month. It's been happening to me for many years. The drugs have taken an already very vulnerable genetic terrain that I have, and they've like blown it into outer space and just destroyed my neurohormonal axis, and my periods just wreck me every month. I go from highly functional to like catatonic, can't stand, in very high level pain, extremely low cellular energy. And so if I don't make this video right now, right on the precipice of it happening, I won't be able to make this video for, at least another week, probably 2, because they just take me down, and then I have to work back up in my taper and in my diet and in my routine to even get back up to, function. And then I get a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's really I get half functionality. I get half what, and I'm not even fully able-bodied when in my more functional phase, but essentially that's what I'm dealing with. So I'm gonna squeeze in as much as I can. It's a very ambitious video that I prepared for you guys this year. I really poured my heart and soul into what I'm about to share with you, and to make it more accessible and organized for you guys, I'm going to put the topics that I discuss and then time code for them underneath this video. So I'm going to tell you right now kind of an overview of what I'm going to touch on, and then I'll have those same topics right below the video with the time code. So if you want to skip to one of those topics, feel free. Eventually, where I'm going with my videos is they're going to be shorter and just cover one topic more in depth, but I'm not there just yet. And so I wanted to share a lot of things that are working for me with you guys. And so, yeah. So I'm going to start with an update on my case, because I'm 27 months off GABA drugs. 9 years of GABA drugging, multitude of benzos, and then phenobarbital, barbiturate, all decimating my GABA system, and finally free. and 27 months without that drug in my body, that drug class in my body, and there's been tremendous healing. Tremendous healing. I mean, I came off in 2014, so 6 years ago I came off of benzos, and that's when the poly drugging started. But 6 years ago, when I was in acute diazepam withdrawal, 5 years ago, I couldn't even be outside. I couldn't even be sitting here if I was in acute. 2 years ago, when I came off phenobarbital, I was in the dark apartment all the time. It was rare if I made it out, So that's huge. There's lots of healing, and that's just one thing. And so, I want to inspire people that you do heal, the brain does heal, healing is possible. It's very, very important to believe it, to see it, and to hold on to it. When you get that rare window, to really hold on to that baseline for yourself, that baseline, and like you don't let go of it. You just hold on to it. That's that vision of yourself, that knowing of yourself. I just wasn't sure if I was recording. Okay. I have my screen covered so that I don't look at myself. I want to look at you. Okay, so I'm going to give an update on my case. Sleep improvement is something that I'm finally experiencing after over a decade of chronic insomnia. It's like intense to even say those words. I want to share about that. I want to share about why. I analyze everything. So the reasons for my improvement that I'm going to go into in more detail in this video are time, just time itself. We're going to look into time a little bit more though. We're going to go deeper into time. Why in this injury does it need so much time, right? We're going to look at that closer. We're going to look at voltage-gated calcium channels, which have something to do with why BWS needs so much time. We're going to talk about EMF RF reduction, electromagnetic field, radio frequency reduction, and why that's important for BWS. And it is relative to voltage-gated calcium channels, abbreviated as VGCC. People who have POTS, there's a lot of POTS. I'm seeing a lot of POTS in the BWS community. I'm seeing a lot of protracted POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that voltage-gated calcium channels are a part of why, and it matters. EMF matters. Earthing matters. One of the things that's helping me tremendously is earthing, and that's why I'm suffering through sitting out here with cramps galore, because I really want to embrace and drive home the significance of this. And if you can't access this right now because you're too screwed up, because you are too sick, your brain is too sick for light, it's okay. It's okay. This will come. This will come. So just hold this, enjoy this vicariously, be here with me vicariously, and this will be your future. I waited a long, long time to even have a yard. This is an absolute joyous delight. This is a gift from God to me. This freaking pine needle patch is like my heaven. The ground was hard and rocky, and I just let the pine needles collect everywhere so it's softer to walk on, because I just want to I'm barefoot all the time. I never have shoes on out here, ever. So we're going to talk about earthing. We're going to talk about hormonal markers as a gauge of neurological healing. Back to my periods and that cycle, we're going to talk about that. Why is that significant? Why is that even happening? What's the connection between menses? This is especially for the women, although male hormones matter too, but they don't have that 28-day cycle. They don't have this regular kind of hormonal ride that menstruating women go through. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit, that GABA progesterone axis. And we're going to talk about sun. One of the other reasons that I'm healing is copious amounts of sun, finally, and in a particular way and for a particular reason. And that also affects sleep, so I'm going to touch on that. And then because I am still tapering, I'm 27 months off GABA drugs, but I am, coming up on 6 years on a tricyclic that I was prescribed when I was coming off diazepam by my Lyme doctor for sleep. And I'm still tapering that mother bleeper down to 1 milligram from 30. But, so we're going to talk a bit about benzos being a gateway drug, because I believe that they are the ultimate gateway drug, because they disrupt so much, they create so much abrasive neurological change that other drugs are band-aided on. It's just like the way it goes with benzos, tolerance in benzos, and then if you're still around, or if you want to watch that segment at the end, I'm going to touch a bit on my tapering philosophy, the tapering method that I've developed and refined. I'm still refining it. It probably always will be, like how can I make it even more precise and have more control. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I have a metaphor for the way that I look at tapering, the way that I do taper, and so that'll be at the end. So, okay, just going to take a sip. Last year's video, I was on the beach and I was so dehydrated and I didn't replenish often enough, and I'm committed not to making that same mistake this year. Okay, time. So it doesn't take long once you enter the benzodiazepine healing community, patient-driven community online, that you learn this is a long recovery. You'll bump into somebody, and I remember the first person who told me it was an 18-month acute recovery, and I was like, come again? Surely you're mistaken. You didn't, what did you just say? 18-month acute? Yeah. 18 months. Dang. 18 months to me now in my 9th year of tapering is like small potatoes. It's like whatever, like 18 months. But at the time, I had already been tapering 2.5 years. I had already been sick with Lyme. This was like really just adding injury to insult to injury. So why? Why does it take so long? Because it's true, it does. It's not the only thing, though, not in my case and not in a lot of cases that I'm closely in touch with and allowed to observe. A lot of people, especially Lyme patients, they need supplementation, they need specific nutrient support, addressing detox pathways and pathogens, microbes, strengthening the immune system. You can't just, give it up to time. You have to be proactive in ways to shore up vulnerabilities in your body. I mean, tapering for me was not the only thing I've been doing all these years. I've been treating Lyme. I was in mold infestation 2 times. Lyme was coming in and out of remission. I mean, I had a lot going on. So time, I would say, if I had to just kind of generalize, I mean, it might be 50 to 60% maybe of my healing. 27 months off, like how much of my wellness right now is just from time? I don't know. Definitely not 100%. Definitely not 100%. And I've been healing exponentially in the last 3 months since I moved here, because I'm now on the West Coast, and one of the major reasons that I moved here was to have a yard, was to have more sun, was to have more earth, was to get out of high EMF environment. I was living in an apartment, it was like 30 Wi-Fis with full signals that I could get on at any time in this high rise. And it was right in the middle of a very metropolitan area with antennas, tall towers. I mean, I was just literally getting drowned with EMF and RF, and I could feel it. I could really feel it. I felt a significant difference. Granted, I was in acute phenobarbital withdrawal, but I was also tapering phenobarbital living in a house in North Carolina. Granted, it had mold, so I was doing something else. But my point is I lived someplace else, 2 other places actually in between that. So I had experienced different types of housing and different types of EMF, RF exposure. I went from a high rise to a house, to a house, to a house, to a high rise, and different environments in those homes. And I could feel the difference. And this place I was last, I mean, I was just like, I felt like I was like getting fried. You know, I had a Faraday canopy around my bed to protect me from EMF. But could still like see, you know, I could still get signal on my devices in the canopy. Somebody donated it to me. I do think it helped. I do think it protected me from a layer. But I was just a sitting duck there, like tapering, you know, there's just no sleep for me there. And since I moved here, and I'm out of Wi-Fi, I have Ethernet now. So as soon as I moved in, I was out of Wi-Fi. I was earthing every day. I was getting sun every day, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But you know, I want to stay kind of focused on time, and what else it takes. I had an instant detox from not being in that much Wi-Fi, you know, and from now starting to tune into the Earth's energy. And my sleep improved immediately the first week I was here, and that was profound. My inner ACA diminished immediately, and it's like, wow, you know, and I had just driven across the country and stayed in various environments, you know, all being exposed to Wi-Fi. Didn't sleep the entire trip, the entire move, the entire trip. Was feeling my cuts tremendously. My cuts were just like kicking me in the head, and I'm tapering faster than ever here. Sleeping better than I have in a decade here, getting stronger, having more cognitive function. I mean, just exponential healing, exponential. The baseline, you know, the baseline keeps getting higher. My periods still suck, but I believe that has a lot to do with the drug I'm tapering currently. So time is a huge part of where I'm at right now, no doubt. But based on these recent enhancements and healing strides that I've been able to make with them, that's not a coincidence. Not to mention all the research that backs up all of it. It's not just anecdotal, and it's not just my experience, it's the experience of many people who improve making the same adjustments. I mean, there was a kid in the community years ago, he was so bad, so bad, so bad. Lyme, benzos, other drug injury. I mean, just like laying in his bed, couldn't move, covered in sores. And I would talk to him and trying to keep his spirit up. And I checked in with him, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and he made a dramatic, like complete recovery, like miraculous. How? Sun on his eyes first thing in the morning and earthing. That's it. Yeah, I'm back at the gym. Sun on your eyes first thing in the morning. I mean, I knew about it already. You know, I studied Jack Cruz. But to hear, you know, now to start to hear evidence about it, it's really powerful. Just adjusting my microphone. So I've been doing that as well. But let's go back to time. I'm a little off course here. Let's go back to time. So I just established that time is a significant percentage of the healing pie, right? If you picture like the BWS recovery. And in somebody with a healthier terrain, somebody who say a benzo with the BWS is the only disease state they're experiencing. They were never sick before then. They don't have any other drug exposures or injuries. They're just a straight BWS case. They might only need time. They might not have been shooken up, you know, past the point of the body being able to put itself back together, right? And they might heal in 18 months and go on, and that's relevant data. But then there's people who were already vulnerable. They were already not balanced, or they had microbial infections, or, you know, toxicities and other things going on. It's usually the case if you're ending up on a benzo, right? Something else is going on. So those cases are going to take longer to heal, because those people have to figure out, okay, so, you know, time is doing its thing, but what else do I have to rebalance, you know, and tweak and address in my terrain to get back to 100%. So there's a incredibly special, gifted person in the benzo community named Stephen LaCourte, who I'm a huge fan of. Last I knew, he was on the board of BIC, the Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. And he wrote a paper not that long ago, and it looked at voltage-gated calcium channels and long-term, you know, protracted withdrawal syndrome from benzodiazepines. He wrote this absolutely brilliant thesis, and I read it 2 years ago, and I, glanced over it again just to, refamiliarize myself with it. But a lot of the paper focuses on the work of Martin Pall. So Martin Pall is another brilliant, gifted, he's a biochemist, and his work, I have some notes here, his work examines the function and disorder of voltage-gated calcium channels and supports long-lasting illness caused by EMF RF by way of overstimulating and dysregulating the voltage-gated calcium channel. So what the hell did I just say? So benzos affect voltage-gated calcium channels. They do not just affect GABA, they affect a whole bunch of other things. And one of them is VGCCs, and not just any VGCC, the L version VGCC, and that means that how they affect it is they're opening it and it stays open longer. They're affecting it longer, okay? It has an even greater impact of change. So they block these VGCCs. And so Martin Pall has done this work on VGCCs, which control the flow of intracellular calcium. And he's proven the case, linked, his work is incredible. There's videos and articles, highly recommend. And he talks about how EMF and RF overstimulates those VGCCs, and then that pretty much manifests into like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, tinnitus. He even says PTSD, ME, as it's known in other parts of the world. All of these are BWS is all of those and more. So there's a connection there. And Stephen LaCourte, in his paper, he brings in the work of Martin Pall and then bridges, and I think he's 100% on the money, he bridges acute benzodiazepine discontinuation, right? Drug discontinuation, cessation of the drug, then causing a flood of calcium, a surgence of intracellular calcium. And that has that same effect that, say, EMF and RF would have on VGCCs. It has this hyperstimulating effect, right? It's too much calcium into the cell. So this work is linked to earthing. It's not a coincidence. So the way that I look at it is that, hang on, let me see. Well, Paul also wrote, before I flip that over, let me just read it. Let me just read a couple more things because I want to make sure that you guys have all this information, okay? Okay, so Paul's work highlights this vicious cycle that intensifies as these oxidants then further, okay, wait, I whoops, I think I deleted something. Yeah, because it creates, okay, so this extra calcium running through the VGCC causes an increase in calcium current density, intracellular calcium, which leads to the formation of a vicious nitric oxide peroxynitrite self-perpetuating cycle, which leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, low ATP, endocrine disorder, cardiac dysregulation. It can cause insomnia, right? So that's Paul's observation linking VGCC. So now we have a drug that directly blocks VGCCs and benzo withdrawal, the symptomology of it, the electric quality of BWS, from akathisia to insomnia. I mean, seizure spectrum, RLS, burning skin, so much inner akathisia, right? Like so much of BWS, that electric sensation, lines up with VGCCs. Hormones are also affected by that VGCC axis. Paul also wrote a paper on multiple chemical sensitivity, pointing to downstream possibility of elevated NDMA receptor activity from lowering GABA A. So now we have another layer of complication, right? That when you lower GABA A receptor function, i.e. from a benzo, then you have this downstream reaction of heightened NDMA. And what's NDMA? That's glutamate. It's excitatory. So we've got these different layers of how voltage-gated calcium channels and affecting GABA receptors are boosting excitatory neurochemistry. It's like layers and layers, because this vicious cycle of nitric oxide and peroxynitrite, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like it just keeps sustaining itself. And then on top of that vicious cycle intensifies even more, because those oxidants, nitric oxide and peroxynitrate, then further increase intracellular calcium. Check it out. So you've got intracellular calcium creating them, increasing them. It's like a storm, and then they then increase more intracellular calcium. So that would explain the length of time it takes in BWS to recover. I mean, that would definitely explain a layer. I know there are many layers. There's no one, this is the definition of BWS. There's no like one, this is why it's so bad. It's definitely layers, you know, it's a structure, but this is a huge piece, I believe. And I really do not think, I know it's not a coincidence that I'm sleeping better and feeling better. I know it's not. And I've seen it in other cases. So I want that, you know, to inspire you and for people to understand the real connection, right? So big up to Stephen LaCourte. I was very grateful for your work, sir. And Martin Paul, I hope I get to break bread with you both one day and talk about VGCCs. Paul's, more of his theory, and well, no, Stephen LaCourte's theory is that, if I understand it correctly, is that the discontinuation of the drug causes an increase in calcium current density, intracellular calcium, which leads to the formation of the vicious nitric oxide, peroxynitrite, self-perpetuating cycle, which leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, low ATP, endocrine disorder, cardiac. I would like to test peroxynitrate level in BWS cases. One of my goals is to raise money for a clinical trial where the community chooses the tests. We choose creative, unique tests based on what could actually find a pattern. Let's find the pattern. Of course, there's no test for BWS. We have to create them. So let's test peroxynitrate, because you can test it. Let's see. This is just one marker I'm compiling into a growing list of potential tests to track and prove both acute and protracted illness post-drug exposure. Okay, so that's time. Because this cycle, this vicious oxidant cycle, can go on a long time before homeostasis is reached, right? I mean, basically the brain has to revert back to pre-drug levels. Oh boy. Whoops. I have paper over here, my bad. It's a very delicate reg I have going on. Yeah, the brain has to revert back to pre-drug levels, like organic programming. The code has been rewritten. It takes time. Imagine if you just left your computer off on its own, like, go fix yourself. You got a virus, work that shit out. That's what the brain is doing. Nobody's going in and changing the way, you know, the receptors, the cellular receptors are behaving after the benzo's gone in and changed it, right? I mean, benzos, like, I was studying clonazepam recently, and clonazepam is really bad with VGCCs. It's probably the worst. You know, they're positive allosteric modulators, which means that they go in and they literally change the function of the receptor. Not even the receptor that it's like docking on, like another receptor. It's crazy. It changes the behavior. So the brain needs time to undo that. So that is my mouthful on time. It helps me to understand what's going on, and for things not to be so like, you know, why and when. Framing helps me, even if it's a hard pill to swallow. I'd rather know what I'm dealing with, you know? Although if you had told me, you know, in February 2012, that I was going to begin to taper off of Klonopin and Ambien, and 8.5 years later I'd still be tapering from other drugs, I probably would have just killed myself. I don't think I would have had the strength to endure such a sentence, you know? But, you know, God revealed it to me, the world revealed it to me one step at a time. But I have known for a long time that this was going to take many, many, many years of my life. You know you're locked up for a long time. And people ask you, how much longer? I probably get asked that more than anything. How much longer? I can't tell you. I can project. I've never tapered under 1 milligram of amitriptyline before. Anyone tapering anything, they've most likely never done it before. Every once in a while there's somebody tapering the same drug again. I mean, it's not uncommon, but what I'm saying is, like, these drugs are diseases. They're unique disease states, neurobiological, hormonal, genetic disease states. And they're unique. There's similarities and there's uniquenesses. And I can't know for sure what amitriptyline is going to be like, even though I'm at 1 milligram right now. I can extrapolate based on the math, but it doesn't get faster toward the end. It gets slower. I mean, you're doing average of 10% cuts off your current dose. It's logarithmic. That's another topic. I just want to say, I already said it. Oh yeah, minerals. Just one last thing I wanted to say about the VGCCs is how important mineral supplementation is with benzo withdrawal. Huge ground zero. Any case that I do, a protocol for starts with minerals, 100%. Right now, my favorite minerals are fulvic and humic, and I'm still finishing up seawater that I bottled in glass last summer at Assateague Island in Maryland. On a super windy day with a storm blowing in, my roommate and I were running to the water. We had the cat on the beach. The wind was like blowing us off. And we were determined, and we filled up all these heavy glass jugs with salt water, because salt water is the most identical substance to human blood, with this like totally perfect mineral profile. And I know it's got all sorts of other shit. I don't need the comments. I already know it's an executive decision I just chose. I'm on a budget, and I supplement with other things. So I've been, I'll put that in my distilled water. Sometimes I drink that, and then sometimes I drink the fulvic humic. And then, of course, my diet, is incredibly mineral rich. So, yeah, that's really important for electric signaling. So back to the EMF RF avoidance, and I'm definitely feeling some pain right now. And my leg is asleep. And there's a kid playing in the yard right there. I set myself up in what I thought was the most private space for this very, very private, delicate, sensitive conversation. And now there's somebody right there, under the age of 10. Okay. So, EMF RF reduction, electromagnetic field radio frequency reduction. I break that down into 3 categories. You want to lessen it, you want to protect against it, and you want to increase the antithesis of it. So what are we going to lessen? Wi-Fi. You don't have to have Wi-Fi. It's just convenient. And we're losing control of other options. I just got rid of Wi-Fi, changed my life. Worth the effort. If more people did it, we could roll back the technocracy. Roll it the fuck back. Excuse my French. Because it is oppressive. It is fucking oppressive. I should have the choice to not have, current running through my body all the time. And it wasn't easy, but I got it done. I have Ethernet in 4 rooms. People have asked me. I'm going to post an article on Crystal Clear, my new platform that I'm building. I'm going to be more instructioned, and I'm going to help people to do this, because the more people that do this, the more people that get rid of smart meters on their homes, the more we put our foot down and say no. It doesn't mean that other people can't have it if they want it, but if all of us just go along for the ride, what's happening is the alternatives, the healthier analog alternatives, are becoming obsolete. Are you really sure you're ready to do that? I'm not. So I have Ethernet. I have 2 routers. I have a power cord where each coaxial is coming in for the router, and everything's right there. There's an Ethernet cable. I just have to move the router. So when I'm at my desk, router's underneath it. Later on, if I want to like stream a documentary or something, I just move it into the TV room. I have a connection from my laptop. I have a connection from my phone if I need to. It's like amazing, amazing. I'm doing longer hours at the computer. Body pain has still been significant, but I'm also coming off of a calcium channel drug, amitriptyline. That's the gift that keeps on giving of polypharmacy. So even though I'm 27 months off of a VGCC drug, I'm still being assaulted by another one. So that is still an issue for me. But I'm positive that this environment, this lower VGCC antagonistic environment that I'm creating for myself, is setting my nervous system up for healing. So Wi-Fi and Ethernet, cell phone, it's a big conversation. You're all grown adults, or maybe not. That's true, actually, because I think of my nephew, and just younger people who don't know any different than cell phones. They freaking haven't even experienced it. I did. I'm a Gen Xer, and Gen Xers have this unique, I think, very precious perspective on technology right now, because we bridge. We're sitting on the fence from like back in the day when none of this was available. We watched it happen. We watched the internet. We watched the cell phones. We watched the smartphones. We've watched all of the automation in the cloud. I miss a lot of life before. I miss a lot of earlier technology, simplicity, and functionality. We are moving fast. We are moving fast, breathtakingly fast. And it'd be one thing if it was innocuous, but it's not. I feel my phone, and I feel a different reaction in my wrist and my forearm and my hands from different phones. And I researched the EMF RF output on all the phones before I was trying to make the best possible choice. And actually for a smartphone, the iPhone 6S was actually the best possibility. But then I let that go for a Pixel because it has a raw camera image, and I take a lot of pictures, and it hurts my wrist and my hand so much more. And I have shungite on it. Shungite's coming up on my protect list. I have shungite magnets on my phone, but they help. I'm glad they're on there, but I still feel it. It's like I am making a choice now to turn my phone off and not be on my phone. Not to mention, I lived on my phone. My phone was literally the window to the world for years when I was crippled in BWS and other drug injury withdrawals, syndromes, sick syndromes, glued to my couch. My whole world, every single thing I did and said happened on this little device, curled up fetal position. It's like, enough, I want to live, I want to be free. I was ball and chained to technology, so there's also a part of my spirit that just wants less of that, right? But I get, if you're in acute, like that phone is your connection to the world, I get it. Just be very conscious, put it in airplane mode whenever possible, turn it off as much as possible. They even make gloves if you're holding it a lot. I wish I could go back to when I was in acute, I would have got some EMF gloves or something like that. Just be conscious, because all of this is stimulating those VGCCs that are already hyper stimulated from BWS. And then when you're out, think about what you're exposed to when you're out. We're losing choices. We really are, but there are still some. Protecting, back to the shungite, I'm not going to get into this too much right now. There is going to be some really good information, and even shungite products are going to be on Crystal Clear. This is just a necklace that I made, but I'm going to be doing some, fancier varieties of these. I have definitely noticed a difference with shungite that protects, strengthens your field, just to say it very, very simply, and it helps to shore up against the EMF RF stress. I have to shift. So then we've talked about lessen, protect. Shungite water too is another thing you can do, and I'm also going to be doing videos and articles on that. Then you want to increase the antithesis, right, to the EMF RF. And what would that be? Well, there'd be earthing. Earthing and swimming. The earth has an electrical charge. About 10 years ago, before I knew anything about pharma injury, I was just like deep in the lime and mold trenches, heavy metals. It was like lime and heavy metals. And I read the work of Clint Ober, fascinating man and story. Highly recommend you check him out. And his connections to the Earth's electricity and health, and how, you know, as people, we don't connect with the Earth the same anymore. You know, just the rubber-soled shoe has really changed. It really derailed us, you know, from the natural design. We were supposed to be grounding with every step, right? And we've insulated ourselves in all these ways, you know, from the soles of shoes to the floors of our homes to the surfaces in even in our outdoor spaces. You know, we're just really separating ourselves. And then you know, you live in a high rise, and so now you're even like higher up, you're not on the ground, and you're getting farther and farther away from that grounding electricity, that energy, right? So I tried earthing sheets 10 years ago after I learned of Clint Ober's work. My bedroom was on the second floor of an old house, and I put a stake out the window right into the dirt. And I think it helped somewhat, you know, but I was on benzos then. I was a freaking hot mess on the drugs, didn't know, and living in mold. So it wasn't going to help that much. I mean, if you're living in active mold, it's really, really difficult because, you know, mold is going to rev that whole system. Over the years, when I went to the beach, every single time I went to the beach while tapering, and I am 8.5 years in, it's unbelievable. Every single time I felt better. Every single time, without fail. Oh, well, it could be any number of things, right? I think it's all of them. That's why you feel so good. You've got this, you know, shot of vitamin D. You've got the earth. You've got the salt water, which is enhancing the earthing. It's like potentiating it. You know, you're potentially, hopefully, shutting off from EMF RF.